I mean, this chick is basically what happens if, Final Destination became a superhero. I'd just like to start out and say that I think this movie did such a fantastic job with their marketing. I can't think of another movie that I've seen, at least in recent years, that's done such a good job with their marketing. Specific example for me that I've never seen before and I don't think can really be replicated is, the selling of older movies with Deadpool themed covers. Only, a Deadpool movie can really do that because the character's so outrageous. So it's amazing to me all the different elements that they've kind of put into their marketing. The budget must have been immense for it, but it's super impressive to me. With this movie, you get exactly what you kind of expect. This is obviously a superhero comedy, and it does everything that you'd kind of expect, things you probably saw in the first one. There's a ton of references to other movies, lots of breaking the fourth wall, and they're all done very well, and I didn't feel like, it was used too much. I thought they were all used at correct times to make the movie kind of witty and clever and really enjoyable. I thought all of them were really funny. The overall comedy of the movie was pretty good. There were one or two jokes that didn't land, but for the most part, it was really funny. I found myself laughing throughout the movie and laughing more in this movie than I have in any movie for a long time. With this movie, you get a good blend of story, action, and comedy. I didn't feel like it was just overbearing with jokes or there wasn't enough action. I felt like they did a good job of balancing all of those out. The action in this movie is really well done. All of the scenes are very well coordinated. It's very beautiful to watch. A lot of really long, lengthy fights using both swords and guns, and I think they did a great job of kind of improving on that from the first movie, even though I thought the first movie did have great fight scenes, but I think this one, kind of takes it a step up in the things that they did. Kind of like with the first Deadpool movie, I was surprised at how interested I was in the story. When I went in to see the first one, I was just kind of expecting, just to be a bunch of dumb jokes and some fighting, but I was surprised at how much I liked the story, and I had that almost same experience when I went in to see this one. The story is very compelling and is very easy to be invested in. You start to actually care about the characters. You start to care about Deadpool and where he's at and like his feelings, which is weird because this movie's just kind of silly, but it has these kind of different undertones that make you feel for the character and actually cause you to feel a different emotion besides just being happy and thinking it's funny. On top of that, with Deadpool's character being so fleshed out with his story, I think they did a very good job of implementing these new characters, such as Cable and Domino, and the X-Force. Cable was done really well. I have no complaints about him. He's just awesome throughout the entire movie. Domino is fantastic. She's basically, this chick is basically what happens if, Final Destination became a superhero. Overall, I think they did a good job of building on the characters that they already had, such as, the relationship with Colossus, I think was really well done. They kind of build on that a little bit more, and of course, with bringing in the X-Force and bringing in these new faces, I thought it was really interesting because you just get new stuff all the time. Very exciting to me. The last thing that I wanted to talk about that I really liked was the soundtrack. The soundtrack is on point. Some original pieces that I thought were really well done. And just funny. It's funny because the soundtrack itself is hilarious, and especially at the times it's used. I can't talk about it too much because it'll kind of give away some things, but the soundtrack is used so perfectly, and when you go see it, pay attention to some of the songs that are playing during some of the fights and stuff like that. It increases I think the enjoyment you get out of the experience. Another interesting thing about the soundtrack is I went and looked at the original Deadpool rap, and that was done by a fan for the video game, and they ended up using that later in the movie, the first movie, and I thought that was so cool that they reached out to the community to be able to put that song in there, and then that song is remixed for this movie, and I think it's so cool that we have this fan base and we have the directors of the movie, and then they just combine and just make it so much more, make it so much better. There wasn't a whole lot I didn't like about the movie. As I said, one or two jokes didn't really land with me, but overall I thought it was pretty good in that respect. There's one or two things I didn't like. One of the things I didn't like, I noticed kind of immediately, and that's the pacing is a little bit funky with right at the beginning there's kind of a more dramatic scene, and then it gets really funny again immediately after, and you don't really have time to kind of get over what just happened. And I think, to me, that's kind of a problem, because I think when you do something dramatic, you need to give your audience enough time to be able to feel it before you just jump right back into being, your goofy superhero movie. Another thing I'd like to bring up that I didn't like was, I thought the kid's character was kind of weak. Not in the sense like his power's weak, but I just felt like the character himself was weak. He's just this kind of angry kid until he's not angry anymore. I feel like he could have been flushed out a little bit more, given a little bit more depth than he was, but, that just might be me being picky. And then the last thing that I thought was kind of iffy is the CGI gets kind of bad at one or two times, and I don't think there's really an excuse for it. We have the ability to make great CGI, and it's shown throughout the movie that we can do some awesome CGI, but there's these moments in the movie where the CGI just looks blatantly bad. And to me, it's not really the biggest deal, but it was something that I noticed. And usually I don't care about that stuff too much, but when I notice it, it makes a point to me, so I figured it would be a good thing to include here. Overall, I'd give this movie an 8. Overall, I wish I could give it higher, but with the couple of things that I thought were an issue, that's what brings it down for me. Overall, it's enjoyable. I would go see it. I'm probably going to see it a second time. Really enjoyed it. Super funny. But yeah, I'd give it an 8 out of 10 overall. And yeah, that's it for me.